Welcome back, everyone. For the next session, please join me in welcoming our dynamic speaker duo, Tanmaya Jain, founder and CEO, Amber by inFeedo, Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia leader, and Abhishek Sen, Chief Operating Officer, Zeta. Tanmaya is the founder and CEO of AI startup inFeedo and a speaker in the field of mental fitness. He's helping HR leaders of 100 plus brands like Tata, Coca-Cola, Airtel, Lenovo, Samsung, and Xiaomi build stellar remote employee experiences and find hidden gaps in their culture. Started at the age of 18, today he has grown inFeedo and made an indelible impact in the lives of 300,000 employees in 50 plus countries. He is also Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia leader. Abhishek is passionate about people and their ability to create sustainable customer business impact. With over 17 years of human resource management, operations, and management consulting experience with organizations like Myntra, SAP, Aon, and Britannia, he has a strong passion for harnessing the power of people to create customer delight and long lasting impact for business delivered with technology at the core. Today, both the leaders will deliver a powerful discourse on what it takes to be a people leader post pandemic. Before I pass on the frame to our speakers, an author contest is running. So please share your learnings, reflections with the community at large using the hashtag #PMEXIN and get a chance to win eco.smartspeakers. So log on to your LinkedIn and create some exciting conversations and engagement around what you're learning at People Matters EX India conference. Don't forget to use the hashtag #PMEXIN. Now, let me welcome our speakers, Tanmay and Abhishek.
Thank you, Shashi.
Welcome, Abhishek. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for a wonderful introduction for both of us. And a shout out to People Matters for finally making a dedicated event for employee experience. I also want to acknowledge the fact that it's exclusive to HR. A lot of friends tried signing up and they're like, oh, wow, this is an HR cult. So I'm glad this is like very, very curated. And I also want to acknowledge that it's Pride Month. So whoever is celebrating, please continue celebrating. Before I start today, I just wanted to sort of call out the reason why Abhishek's here. And if you see the screen right now, right, we've been spending a lot of time over the last 2-3 days to figure out how we can give you maximum value from all of our learnings in the last 1.5 years since the pandemic. And the reason why I felt Abhishek is the best speaker from amongst all of our customers on our screen right now is because, yes, he's covered Zeta, Britannia, Myntra, Jabong, and Aon Hewitt, which is also a customer. And keeping that aside, he's an XLRI grad, which is always close to my heart. He's a CHRO turned COO. He's gone from B2C to B2B. He's gone from a bootstrap starter with Bhavin Tirakhya to now a unicorns funded startup, right? And overall, I think I would like to welcome you, Abhishek, to the B2B space and also sort of make you a little awkward by telling everyone that you are a patrol head and you love comics. I want everyone to know this because this is a little known fact. And before I hand off to you, Abhishek, to share your perspective on your top 5 learnings, I do want to acknowledge that there's one thing your CEO Bhavin said which completely changed the way I think, right? And he said, and I think he believes this as well, he said that it is our moral obligation to make an impact that is proportionate to our potential. It is our moral obligation to make an impact that is proportionate to our potential. And that line struck me so hard as a founder, right? Because Bhavin is Bhavin, right? So on that note, I know even though over the last 1 year, best practices as a word is thrown out of the window and everyone's talking about first principles. So let's not talk about what the market is doing. Let's talk about what you're doing. So Abhishek, let's hear your top 5 learnings from the last 1 year.
Hey, thanks, Tanmaya. And like I was saying, it feels like a chat, and you and I have been chatting for quite some time over the past several years. And but I think the chat today is a lot more relevant because the last 1.5 years have been I would say it's been transformative, and I keep saying this in many forums that it's a reflection that's turned into an inflection, where people have realized that the world is not the same anymore, and how we need to change ourselves in order to make sure that we remain productive, we remain connected to our business, and focused on how to remain successful in an environment which is completely different. So, I'm not gonna talk about theories, but I'll talk about what I have observed over the last maybe 12 odd months from a people standpoint, from an HR standpoint, and how it has completely thrown a lot of our textbooks out of the window, and made us really introspect and think about what HR really needs to do in order to enable the business by creating healthy, happy people, healthy, happy employees. So the first element that actually struck me sometime in June, July of last year, when I started encountering a lot of cases where employees, friends reached out for assistance across various areas that they were impacted through, be it financial, be it mental, be it even the fact that they were getting stir crazy, not being able to meet an individual face to face, and that's impacting their work life. And that's what made me realize, after speaking to maybe 30, 40 people, is that employee wellness is, I think, the most underrated concept today. And that was my first learning, saying employee wellness is something we cannot take as good to have. It's now becoming a must have. And when I say wellness, I don't mean just physical wellness. I mean mental wellness, social wellness, financial wellness. How can I ensure that we go beyond engagement and experience, but start getting into wellness as well, where and I'll give you a quick few examples. Like financial wellness, a lot of people in the last 12 odd months, and for people who've unfortunately been through this pandemic themselves, would have realized that insurance sometimes doesn't cover COVID cost, right? And you need cash in hand. You need at times significant amount of capital to be able to battle this deadly affliction for you and as well as for your family. How do you have access to that cash? So what's that financial advice that we are giving our employees to be able to save right, to be able to create the right cauldron of cash required for fighting some of these things, right? So financial wellness became a very important, I would say, eye-opener for me over the last 6 to 12 months, when I've been trying my level best within the organizations that I look at to provide that financial wellness to all employees as and when they need it, right? Second was mental wellness, and I think you are quite the beacon in that sense, and you've been talking about mental wellness in multiple forums, and I love you for that. But I still think people haven't understood the importance. People still, and I think these last 1.5 years have given us, shaken us out of our apathy about mental wellness, because there are people who are sitting in corners of the world who've not interacted with other people, who've been sitting in front of a screen and running their houses, but it just doesn't help, right? So that's that's another big realization for me, to say, how do we ensure that mental wellness becomes a critical aspect of wellness that we look into and provide the right kind of support to employees at the right time. And yes, then there is social wellness and physical wellness, of course, which directly connects with what's going on in the world today. So yeah, so my first point was wellness, but again, I'll switch over to you to talk a little bit about what you've observed being in the driver's seat of an amazing company like inFeedo, where you've been interacting with tons of HR people, and what have they said about this element?
No, I think thanks for acknowledging that there are 4 pillars to wellness, especially mental wellness. Some patterns I've observed is number one is it's become a KPI or a KRA of sorts all the way down to the managers, right? And not just the HR. So not just the HR has to think of 4 pillars, every single manager has to think of 4 pillars. I've noticed companies have like upgraded their insurances, their medical insurance, their mental well-being insurance. They have tie-ups with EAPs on mental well-being organizations. I've noticed financial assistance in 30 minutes, no questions asked, right? I've noticed some smaller initiatives like no meeting Thursdays, no email Wednesdays, and maximum 25-minute calendar meetings, and basically like very, very common frameworks, right? But what I'm trying to say is that you're right that mental wellness is still the elephant in the room, right? And we have to repeatedly address it even beyond the pandemic, right? Because there is a challenge that will sustain this year, next year, and the year after that. And mental well being has to be a constant. So, what I've noticed as an interesting hack most companies we work with are doing is in their all hands or their town hall, they choose to recognize managers with the most happiest teams or teams with the highest mental well-being, right? Because the kind of behavior you recognize or reprimand is what happens at the company. The kind of things you recognize or reprimand is what drives behavior. And instead of just performance, they've started recognizing managers with the happiest teams, right? And I do want to share a framework on my screen, right, that we came up with over the last 1 year. And I hope it helps everybody. Feel free to take a screenshot. Uh, all of our companies, we collectively came up with 7 drivers of employee experience of well-being, right, which are centered with the employee in the center. And we were discussing this at Zeta as well, that there are 7 which start from my manager, right in the center, my team, my work, my culture, senior leadership, and so on, right? And each and every driver has elements within it that have to be constantly measured over time, right? And this is something we've been able to come up with as a research, which was recently featured in IIM and Harvard. And I hope this helps everybody with regards to the kind of questions you want to be asking. And you know what, like we'll be happy to give it out for free for everyone who's watching this, right? So we have some templates for you. We have a mental well-being template. Because it's Pride Month, we have a D&I template. And since I have no sales agenda, we will just give it to you for free. I hope it helps everybody. But with that, Abhishek, I think I love point 1. Let's move on to point 2.
So point 2 is about the concept of making HR processes light, right? Making HR process light, I think is another big realization, right? I think with face-to-face meetings, with the ability to connect with a person in person and providing feedback and so on, I think we've been pushed to kind of rethink a lot of our processes, right? And case in point is performance management. Typically, if you go to any organization today, and I'm sure there are many progressive organizations as well, but a lot of organizations today have like 6, 7 different sub processes in the performance management, the entire paradigm, right? Which is you need to go through a self-review, then you have a manager review, you have a peer review, then you have multiple rounds of calibration, you have promotion discussions. But imagine what you're doing to the individual who's again sitting in one corner of their house in front of a screen, who's not only fighting to make sure that the family is healthy, they've got those 1 or 2 hours when they have to rush out and get their rations. They're trying to procure medicine for their friend and family. How do you make sure that the process remains light, right? Because that's where you start focusing on impact. That's where you start focusing on the right insights, which can have the maximum impact or the most prioritized impact on performance management. So that's another big learning that we've had, where what we've done over the last 12 to 18 months is we've tried to go back to basics and look at each people process in the employee life cycle and make it lighter by one, using technology, and second, by using anything that creates the right impact and is not just used for documentation.
Got it. Got it. No, Abhishek, I love how you mentioned light and the example of performance management systems. In fact, everyone yesterday we were discussing this, and Abhishek was like, it is exhausting with 50 hoops, right, in Google Sheets. But I think on that note, what I observed is like that tech is becoming hygiene, right? And most companies were relying on email and WhatsApp, right, where you can't be agile, right, if you have to start every conversation with a, like, dear, and with those, like, all those red tape and formalities. So I noticed that basics like having a Slack or something else for communication, or having a donut, right, DONUT, right, which is a product for water cooler conversations, right, and similar other tools just became hygiene, and nobody even talks about them as like, oh wow, you have Slack. It's it's hygiene now. The other bit, and if you can pull up our screen, is automation, right? And this is what I've noticed: the types of automation I saw people doing to make their processes lighter. If you can pull up our screen, I'd love to show you some examples. So number one, we observed that people have started automating their 30-60-90s, both the process and the efficiency experience of that process. Number two, we noticed any moment which was critical to the employee, because we're so obsessed with the physical judgment of culture by looking at how people were in the office, which is not there now. For example, if I just go off video, you don't know how I'm feeling. And that's exactly how it is for thousands of your employees. So how do you make sure you're there at every moment, making sure that process, whether it's a manager change, a location change, a project change, or any other change, is actually happening the right way, because you're not around. They're behind the screen, they're at home. And of course, there is the exit as well. The exit interviews are automated. The post-exit interactions are automated. And now people are asking, and they're asking us, right, can you automate the candidate experience, the candidate feedback experience as well? And, like, what's interesting is, and this was honestly beyond me, right, in the early days, they said, how about you map it on one graph? Let's say this individual, Akshay, how did Akshay feel from his interview till the day he left, and map every single touch point on a graph? And what's fascinating for me is last year, these things used to be like, oh my God, wow, this is really interesting. But now it's like, this is basics. This is hygiene. How are we acting on it? So essentially, that's point number two, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to automate the right things. And that's just basics. But I want to take it up a notch now, Abhishek. So if you can move on beyond the basics and touch upon point number three.
Yeah. So, point number three is where, so we spoke about light processes, we spoke about wellness, but I think there is another element. And as we start talking about people processes, we also realized that, we never stopped hiring as an organization, right? And we, fortunately, because we are B2B, because we are a technology product company, we never faced the true impact which at times a B2C organization would face. So in our situation, we kept hiring, right? We kept growing as an organization. And that's when we realized that there was this huge transformation necessary to start, and we used to call them COVID babies. We were hiring people who we have never seen, never met, never shook their hands. They were hired where we were meeting them completely remotely, online. We were onboarding them remotely, which, for old school people like me at times felt like blasphemy, that I'm doing gross injustice to a person by not even meeting the person face to face, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, or taking the person out for a beer when they're joining the organization. Because sometimes onboarding is a reflection of culture. So I couldn't do that. And then, like you said, every touch point in the employee's life cycle, how do I make sure that I'm growing and keeping them engaged, giving them the right kind of learning, helping them upskill, managing their careers, but doing the entire thing remotely or in a hybrid environment. And that was, I think, a big clincher for us, because we realized, and we ourselves have started accepting the fact that the world is not the same anymore. Now, today it's COVID-19, it could be something else tomorrow. We have to start figuring out how to operate in a far more lit manner, and where we can pivot very quickly and use technology to manage the entire employee life cycle from get, grow, keep. So that was another very big realization to say. And the big question we were trying to answer is, how do you hire, engage, and retain a person without meeting the person at all, and without being able to really engage the individual face to face? And how do you use a technology platform that is light, but yet gives you all the right insights to be able to manage that person's engagement, learning, productivity, even compensation, completely remote. So that was another very, very big. So running a people organization in a hybrid environment.
Got it. But by the way, did you mention the keyword as COVID babies for the new joiners? Is that what you said?
Yeah, there are a lot of such names that have been used. COVID babies is something we use because there are a lot of people who joined after lockdown. So we've never met these people. So we are only meeting them on Zoom.
Got it. I think with regards to the workforce post the pandemic, and just for everyone, post pandemic means post onset of the pandemic. The pandemic is still active, right? Someone messaged me. So borderless talent is something I noticed, right? That now it's a larger problem because not only can you hire from any country in the world, because earlier there used to be let's say location challenges. Your team members can join any company in the world as well, right? So the talent market is all over the place, and my fear is developed countries will start capturing developing countries like ours, right? Because they have a higher paying capacity. But that's a change I've noticed. And the other one, which is subtle and I've started seeing early signs, is something people call reverse change management. So for example, companies that have started to reopen their office are struggling with the whole journey for change management from office to remote, and now remote back to office, and they're starting to see attrition. So reverse change management is a new term I've heard, but and Abhishek, just to be shameless here, I'm really sort of curious to hear your feedback on this lightweight tech, but I'm going to save it for the end today, right? But we want to proceed fast and move on to point number 4, because I think we have to move slightly faster.
Yeah, so point number 4 is actually, and that's the interesting bit, right? And when the pandemic kicked in, and not the pandemic, I think when the lockdown kicked in, there was an initial phase of euphoria where people said, you know what, I don't have to wait through Mumbai traffic, Bangalore traffic. I can operate from home. And, I think this is actually going to be better for engagement. What we quickly realized in about 2 months that was not true. People had issues of zoning out. People had issues of getting stir crazy sitting at home. People had issues of this whole concept of the work-life balance line actually blurring became a very, very severe challenge for all of us, right? And when we dug deep into this problem, we realized another very interesting element, which was that since you're not, and I think you showed it very beautifully, a lot of people don't always come on video even. There is no way to judge sentiment. There's no way to judge body language. And if engagement is what is holding us back in our organizations, employee experience is what is critical to retention, how do you manage employee experience in a completely remote environment? I think that was our biggest. So you mentioned that point already, the fact that today when I'm hiring, the entire market's my oyster. I'm not restricted by location of office. Similarly, for the entire world, I am now, no matter where I am located, I'll lose people to organizations not just in this country but outside. So how do I protect them? And to do that, employee experience becomes critical.
Got it. So we'll go super fast now. People Matters is messaging me, but I think just to summarize the 4th point, I think the fear and something we have to address proactively is that when the market opens, attrition will spike. I think that's a given, right? And something we've sort of done at inFeedo, even though we're a smaller team of 70 people. And this is something I learned from Zoho's founder, right? Where he mentioned that instead of questioning why an employee leaves, start asking yourself, what have you done to deserve their loyalty, right? And that's a question we started asking our managers and not the employees. So let me give an example. Option A, ask your employees, hey, why are you leaving? Option B is ask your managers, what have you done to have them deserve to be on your team, right? And I think that's something which was a sort of game changer for me. But Abhishek, let's close with the 5th point quickly, and then we'll start the
which is, I think, what you also mentioned. It's a nice segue to say that how do we create better managers in this kind of an environment? That was another big challenge for us, because managers are used to managing teams physically before the entire lockdown or before this entire transition. So how do you train a manager to manage and keep engaging their people better so that they are able to retain and gain that loyalty. So creating better managers and leaders.
Understood. Got it. Just a couple of tips on that, and then we'll start taking questions. I have them all on chat. One thing is I observed is to really drive this change with managers, most companies have started setting it as a KPI or at least a unset KRA that culture and engagement and experience is your responsibility and not just the HR, right? So that's a shift we've seen. But the not so obvious shift is it comes with an actionable that every leader has to block time on calendar titled as culture. Like, are you investing 1 hour per month or 1 hour per week for culture? And maybe all of the technologies that you use will tell you who to meet or what's the scientific reason behind meeting someone. But is each and every manager or leader investing time to sort of improve their culture? But with that, I think Shashi, you've requested us for a poll. We can start the poll. And over the next 30 seconds, Abhishek and I can skim through the questions and start answering.
Sure.
Shashi, can you confirm if the poll's live so we can start reading the questions in parallel? Welcome back.
Sure, Tanmay. So we have 2 poll questions, and looking at the time, it looks like we'll just be able to have 1 poll. Let me know which one would you prefer.
How about you pick, Shashi? There's so many.
All right. Okay, so the question is your organization open to exploring tools to enhance employee experience? And there are 2 options, and the poll is live.
Okay. Oh, I think that poll is for the audience. Meanwhile, Abhishek, would you like to pick a question from the chat?
Yeah, I was just looking at the questions basically.
Yeah. There's a mountain of questions. We're gonna have to do a separate session for this.
Yeah.
And we have just 2 minutes left. So.
Lindsay Korean has asked, how do you check the happiness scores for managers on how they handle their teams?
Let's do this.
Let's answer that question. I think that seemed to be fairly relevant, and since we covered the last element quite quickly, this could be a good point. So, if I've understood the question correctly, you're saying happiness scores for managers on how they've handled their teams, which is basically saying if a manager is able to keep the team happy, and how do you kind of measure it? I think Tanmaya would be able to give you a lot more information on that because of the revolutionary product that he's built. But I personally think that it, you can do it in multiple ways. I mean, you can actually capture that information through a pulse survey. You can go around asking every employee, saying, is your manager giving you the right kind of support in these times? Whether you create a happiness score or whether you create a scale in which you measure, I think what is important is, even beyond managing a score, is what you do with it. So how do you measure the score over a period of time and keep actioning out the gaps or the improvement areas so that the manager becomes better? The score shouldn't be used as something to reprimand anyone, but to train and improve the managerial capability of the individual. So I think, slightly protracted answer, but that I think is what we should focus on.
Well said, Abhishek. I think you're right that instead of negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, like I said, has worked, where whatever scores you get, let's say from Amber or any other product, right? That, okay, here's the score of your managers for happiness in their team. Stack rank it and make sure the top 3, let's say, are recognized in your town halls and all hands. And the bottom 3 are put on a VIP, right? Which is a value improvement program and not just a performance improvement program. So that's how you can go about it. But just some other questions I could go rapid fire on. Ayushi's checked in on the leadership buy-in. What I've noticed is that obviously showing peer leaders in the industry helps. But if the leader can come in front of your own company in the town hall and make a commitment that, okay, now it's a recurring agenda where the leader will talk about well-being and the initiatives, that has been the single most biggest game changer, at least for our customer base. But Abhishek, if you can talk about Bhaven, how you guys do this.
No, and absolutely. I think it has to come from the top. To be very honest, and this is my candid experience, till date I have not seen a leader who's not bought in, by the way, about employee well-being. It's just that there has to be some more education about what well-being and wellness truly means, so that they invest their energies in the right direction. So I actually think that today, between you and me, if we know 100 leaders, all 100 leaders would have buy-in. They would want to invest in employee well-being. They just want to know what we invest in, which will have the maximum impact. I think that's the focus area that we need to build in our organizations.
Got it. Final question for the day, and Deepti's asked this: how do leaders who haven't advocated about mental wellness in years change the narrative now? Right. I do want to acknowledge one thing. I never believed in work from home, and the best way to sort of build trust is vulnerability. I went to my team and I said, "Hey guys, I made a mistake." Right. So I think I would say that trust is super critical, not just for like the change in your stance on mental wellness. It's also like the only way to build it is by opening up with your challenges as well, because as a leader your family would be hit as well. At inFeedo, 44 out of 70 families were hit, and we all openly spoke about it as much as possible. But Abhishek, you have an 1100 strong workforce, so I'm sure for you it's harder.
No, but by the way, we did the same thing. People who are not focused on mental wellness before, we heard our own stories and we went and related those stories to employees. So, along with apologizing if we hadn't focused on mental well-being before, we told our own stories to say, here is what is happening, and that's why we need to focus. So yes, vulnerability and reinforcement through stories is how leaders should go out and advocate support through mental wellness, support for mental wellness.
Fantastic. Thank you, Abhishek, for your time. For everyone, just one final
My
point
pleasure.
as a mental takeaway is a concept called radical candor that has changed our lives. So if you YouTube radical candor in 6 minutes, I hope that helps all of you. It's a concept by Kim Scott, and it sort of helps build trust with remote teams as well. Abhishek, sorry for interrupting. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Thank you, People Matters. Thank you, Shashi. I will see all of you in the evening as well.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Tanmaya, Abhishek. Abhishek, over
Thanks,
to you.
Tanmay. Thanks, Shashi. Thanks, People Matters. Tanmay, electrifying conversation as usual. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I wish you all the best of health. Stay safe and have a great event ahead. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanmay and Abhishek, for such an amazing session. Thank you so much. I can see the level of engagement in the chat and the kind of questions we have received. I know because of time we are not able to take all the questions, but Tanmay and Abhishek, I would request if you could join us on the Hopilo platform and you can interact with our delegates. And in this session, if you could just answer some of those questions which are left unanswered, that would be great. Thank you once again for joining us today, Tanmay and Abhishek. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will break for a short networking break. And in this break, we have a couple of exciting things planned for you. In the collaboration track, there is experiential session of relaxing meditation music for stress-free mind. So join us there to experience the power of music. Also, do not forget to visit the exhibition zone and interact with different partners which we have to get to know more about the latest employee experience solutions and services. We are also going to start with People Matters Tech Search Puzzle in the social wall. So in this activity, there are going to be 3 puzzle questions that we are going to post in 3 different breaks. So what you have to do in each break, you have to answer those tech search puzzles, and a lucky winner who's going to answer all those 3 questions right, they are going to win MI Smart watch bands. So get ready. There is a lot of things planned for you in this networking break. After this break, when we come back, we are also going to start with our track sessions. You can select whichever track you want, main track 1 or main track 2. In this main track, there's going to be a session on how a C-suite partnership can lead to a transformation in EX. And in track 2, there's going to be masterclass on being full work and employee well-being, the benefits of bring your full self to your work. So do not forget to join us back after the break. All right. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the networking zone. Thank you.